Today we're going to talk about some of the most important aspects of aerospace and defense, none other than Rolls-Royce. Rolls-Royce needs no introduction, whose engine powers commercial and military aircraft world over. And the talk of the town today is Rolls-Royce HAL has inked a deal for their Adour engine, which powers our Jaguar and also jet trainer in India, basically. So what does it mean for India? First of all, India will be part of the global supply chain for Adour engine parts in India and for the international military customer. To talk about such important aspect of aerospace and defense, which is also one of my key focus all the time, is aero-engine capability for India, is Mr. Kishore Jayaraman. He's the president, Rolls-Royce India and South Asia. He's also very forthcoming and he has contributed hugely in the aerospace segment. We'll begin with asking you, Mr. Kishore, what does it mean for Adour engine Make in India collaboration? What does it entail in terms of technology transfer? If you could detail on that, or it would be about co-creation, or it is just about licensed production in India. Would you just set forth the whole background for Adour and HAL, the context, please?
No, thank you very much, Manish, for having me here with you. It's a pleasure to be here. And, before we go into co-creation and license productions, etc., the most important thing for us is it is a true testament to our relationship with HAL. Our journey with HAL started back in 1956. We have been through many trials and tribulations, and we have seen many successes, we've seen many challenges. And I think this is another feather in that cap where we have decided that we're going to make some of the Adour parts, some of the complex Adour parts with HAL here in India. So I think, the relationship, the strength of the relationship, the strategic initiative in order to build on the services capability that HAL has for the Adour engines, on the ability to take some of these complex parts with some very niche processes and be able to deliver it not only for the Adour engines in India, but to the globe, is kind of a testament to the confidence that both parties have in each other and to the ability for both parties to figure out ways to keep growing ourselves in the relationship. We have a great joint venture with HAL and it's going very well. We make civil aerospace parts out of that joint venture. We have this technology transfer agreement that came about a long time back, right? And we've been serving the Indian Air Force with the Jaguars and the Hawk trainers. And I think at the end of the day, we have to continue to keep evolving. We need to keep building ourselves, and we need to grow into what we want next. And what we want next is to look into the co-creation opportunities. We want to look into the ability to create an AMCA engine here in India. And we want to have the ability to work with relevant agencies, to work with the relevant companies, and be able, as Rolls-Royce, to enable IP creation in India, to enable co-creation in India, to enable co-manufacturing in India. So that is where really Rolls-Royce wishes to be. And that is the future. But this is a major stepping stone, a major milestone in that journey for us, because we have not done many defense, or for that matter, not done at all any defense parts manufacturing in India for our engines. Right. So I think it's a very major step.
Right. I mean, of course, you talked about, we'll come back from some of the key aspects you talked about, of course, AMCA and other major project of Indian Air Force, basically. But then I want to understand more, we know that we had this capability we had with Kaveri, which did not have the required thrust. We also had licensed production. We built a Sukhoi engine right here in the heart of India, basically. But where all those, what you call well-established, play and transfer kind of, technology. So in terms of Adour, does it achieve extra mile beyond that license production or set pattern, which is just given to HAL? If you could define in terms of bit of technical transfer, basically.
So in principle, it is not a license production agreement. It is not a technology transfer agreement. It is transfer of a capability that they have that capability. We are going to give them orders that are going to actually allow them to fulfill these parts. right? So they're going to be the manufacturer of these parts. And these parts can be done in India for the Indian Jaguar or the Adours on the Indian Jaguars and the Hawk trainers. But they are also meant for the other Hawk trainers that are around the world, for the other Adour engines around the world. So they are going to become a supplier of these particular complex parts for India and the rest of the world. So it is not a license, it is not a technology transfer. They have the capability themselves. They know how to make it. And that is why we have said, you make it for us. They're going to do that.
The engine part you're talking about, parts and capability, is just confined to HAL. It will also go beyond HAL and partner further to the private sector.
It will go beyond HAL. It will go beyond HAL. We are not constrained. I mean, the capabilities that are there for HAL is tremendous in this area. Definitely HAL has a major role to play, but it does not limit itself just to HAL. It can be anybody. And civil aerospace, we work very closely with Tatas, we work closely with Godrej, we work with Bharat Forge, and we have had great success over the last 10 years, right? And we will continue to do that. Similarly, I think in defense, we will continue to, evolve with our footprint.
So with Adour, what is the key capability we're gaining? Say, are we building up on the material aspect of the engine, what you call the key aspect in the core of the engine? We are talking about the blade part of the engine. What exactly we adding value to HAL capability in building engine? I want to further understand on that.
So, basically what it does for HAL is gives them the ability to make some of these parts, which before have been bought, right? There have been other suppliers in the world who have done it. Now HAL has the ability to make it themselves. Now, what it does is it builds on that, and already they have the services capability for the Adour engines. They already have the capability to assemble it and put it all together. And so they already have a lot of the, what do you call as the ecosystem of an engine manufacturing. And now this is another sort of a bolt on to their ecosystem evolution, right? And then from here, it will build on with more parts. From there, it will build on to something more. Eventually, the whole capability of the Adour engine in India just keeps growing with us.
Mr. Kishore, I want to understand, when the final assembly part when it takes place, and then you have a lot of testing process in between. Does HAL have all those testing elements, infrastructure, ready there for this Adour engine? And I think, and those infrastructure can be used for further development, say, of next generation engine?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. The details of what they have, what they do not have, I don't have it at the tip of my fingers. But the bottom line is, yes, they have a lot of capabilities. And yes, they will be able to adopt those capabilities to other areas as well. But that will be better served or better answered by HAL than me on the details of those capabilities.
Right. Great. Mr. Kishore, of course, a good day for Indian aerospace. We have recently another big deal, C295, giving to the private players. So, and we'll shift on some broader aspect of Rolls-Royce in India, your commitments to India. I understand last year you signed a memorandum of understanding again with HAL to establish a support system in India for MT-30 marine engines. Despite the fact that Rolls-Royce engine and marine engines are used worldwide, I understand it's used in US frigates, US warships, many of the very advanced capability, but it's not there in India. So what is the proposition for the Indian Navy, for Indian warship, especially for your MT-30 engine? And then what is about the advanced capability when you compare it with most of the Ukrainian Jolia turbines and American General Electric LM2 500 gas turbines with your engine? If you differentiate your capability, advanced next generation capability, and highlight some of the aspects of MT-30 marine engine.
No, firstly, I think the marine technology side has been, India has been very strong. We have built warships, we have built frigates, destroyers, we have built submarines. I don't think we have been short on ability to do things, and I think it's got great engines and it's got great propulsion equipment in them. So our journey is going to be about, we constantly keep developing products. We also have similar products like our competition. And we want to position our products just as much as they do. But at the end of the day, it is about what is the value that the Indian forces will get by adopting one technology versus the other. When we look at our MT-30, it provides us enough propulsion for a frigate or a destroyer. A couple of them can propel a water aircraft carrier. So that's all a possibility, and we want to partner with companies in India, with great shipyards in India, and work with our products on them. But the future of these products are going to be hybrid in nature. The future is a combination of electrical and mechanical. And I think in that area, Rolls-Royce is already moving forward because we firmly believe that the environment has to play an equally important role, as much as we want everything else to grow. So if you combine environment with our products, it has got to be value that is intersecting very hard. It's got a great intersection between environment and the product performance. Right? Environment has to be part of the product performance.
You're talking about those reducing carbon emissions, out of that,
Absolutely.
those aspects, while building the high quality advanced next generation engine.
Absolutely, yes. That is correct. That is absolutely correct.
All right. I also understand, you proposed this for our next future aircraft, INS Vishal, and exactly which is about 65-ton vessel, which will have a 50-60 aircraft. What is the proposition for INS Vishal? Is it about something to do with Make in India, or what exactly?
Look, at the end of the day, I think when you look at the future, generating IP is going to be the key, which is co-creation. I think if we know what we want, let's say we want a certain amount of, for example, like you said, 65 tons carrier, then what is the propulsion requirement of the carrier? What is the thrust required? What is the efficiencies required? What is the weight required in terms of the power density that's required? So when you do all this math and then you combine that with sustainability initiatives as well, you come up with the product that is required for the next generation equipment. Then you go about and you say, okay, who can build it? And then we build it with them for those specifications, which is basically co-creation. And then once you do that, then we can manufacture that locally here, and then we'll be able to implement it all. And then services becomes automatic. Because unless the whole engine, everything is co-created and co-manufactured here in India, then the services piece of it will have that much of difficulty to catch on. But now if it is all done in India, then services becomes an easy plug on. So I think for the whole life cycle of the engine, which has to start from the design side, it has to go all the way till the end of the engine. And that is what we really would like to do, with the relevant partners, whether it be public, whether it be private, in the marine technology side, in the aircraft technology side, and look at the future as a partnership and a collaboration.
So this is the big question, I know it's advanced technology. It's a technology with Rolls-Royce. Everybody wants to keep it, whether it's a Pratt & Whitney or the Rolls-Royce or talk about other big companies, basically. But that is what India wants. Last year, Rolls-Royce announced to manufacture a new jet engine for AMC Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft. Also, we have LCA Tejas Mark II. And Air Force Chief recently, of course, I spoke a couple of times. He said we need about 300 or 400 fighter jet aircraft. Having understood that, it's the heart of, engine is the heart of aircraft. It's all about cost, capability, everything boils down there. You also talked about that, okay, India will get the IP. So where is it stuck now? Where is the project?
It's not stuck. You see, these are all very large programs, right? They involve a lot of complexity in them, in terms of cost, in terms of geopolitics, in terms of relationships between nations, in terms of technologies, in terms of export controls. When I say technology needs. So it's not an easy, it's not an easy thing. It's a very complex effort, and it takes a lot of people to get together in order to make it happen. All I can say is that, look, there are a lot of people who are aware of what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. And there are a lot of people who are trying to push it forward very quickly. So I am very hopeful that we should see the light at the end of the tunnel very soon. Very soon in the world that we live in, for us to develop an engine takes about 5 to 10 years. For anybody, when I say us, it means Rolls-Royce and the other companies in the market, right? And so to develop an engine and then be able to fly it and then be able to fit it and then build it at scale is a time-consuming effort. But then you spend the 10 years, then you are looking at the product for 50 years. See, that's how this business works, right? So it's a very long cycle business. So in the long cycle business, the initial decision is always hard. And I think it gets harder because of many other factors. But I think at the end of the day, the concept of co-creation, the concept of building capabilities, I think the train has left the station. It's just a matter of time before it picks up speed and brings it to a closure.
But I think the train is stalled there. I don't see, apart from something on the paper, there has been any movement in terms of building, on the ground, basically. I appreciate that. I have seen your remarks. You have been very enthusiastic. I think as an Indian also. You as an Indian, and of course as a CEO, I think you are a global leader, and your concern for jet engine for India. You have seen your remarks are very forthcoming. And still now you have spoken about 5 to 10 years, which is absolutely, I think, it's a great speed. Even if something happens now, it's a miracle if we get that in. But I want to understand, it should be a national mission, of India. If you can build up Tejas, and we are talking about 500 fighter aircraft, we're talking about aerospace hub. It has not yet taken off. I mean, how long are we going to talk about, such complexity?
So Manish, if you go back in history, how did the jet engine come about really? How did the rockets actually come about? Rockets came about from Peenemünde during World War II, right? And if you look at the Spitfires, where did the Spitfires come from? World War I. See, when there is a war, there's a big need, and so technology development, everything rises up to the occasion for them. During peacetime, in your generation, and definitely my generation, we have not really seen many wars. And so wars of the scale of World War I and II enhance technology development speed. And peace times, generally, technology for defense slows down a lot. Ammunition for guns and all this will keep going on. But developing an aerospace engine, developing an aircraft carrier, how many countries in the world have aircraft carriers? How many countries in the world have submarines? These are technologies that don't happen unless there is a great need, because the investment is huge. But the fact that India has continued to invest in it for such a long time itself is a very credible thing. But then, yes, you and me want speed now because we are seeing speed around us, around the world. And definitely we want to push it faster than where it's going. But then you put in everything. I mean, you know this and I know this. We live in a free liberal democracy. And a free liberal democracy brings its own inertia. Right? So you have to factor all these things. But can we do it? The answer is we can do it. Do we want to do it? The answer is yes, we want to do it. It's just that pace has to be set to the right one, and then we'll all be home. That's my feeling.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Mr. Kishore. But it is also about making a big case for economy. I mean, defense is all about economic growth also, besides the security. So the argument is just not based on building capability on the aspect of security. It has more to do with economic development of India. I think, having such kind of capability for India will propel India to the next generation economic growth. Don't you agree with that aspect, basically?
Yes. Look, I think if you look at it, first you have to have the focus. And the focus was we were importing 70% of everything. And I think if you look over the last 8-9 years, the number of components that have been localized, that have been indigenized, has only constantly increased. I don't know the percentages today, what it is. But then if you look at the offset programs that they've done, if you look at the partnerships that they've done, you look at the ecosystem for supply chain that has been created, whether it's aerospace or marine or the armed forces, I think there's been plenty of movement. I think we want to see what we want to see. And if you want to see that this should have happened and that didn't happen, so the pace is slow, of course. But I honestly believe, yes, there is definitely 3 steps forward, 1 step backward. But I don't think it is 3 steps forward, 4 steps backward. Right?
Great. So, Kishore Jayaraman, it's a great moment, of course, when we talk about, about your understanding with HAL. But when we talk and take this opportunity, I'm really glad to ask some of the fundamental questions from you, because you represent some of the best of the global, companies, some of the mecca of advanced engineering, basically. So how could I not touch upon some of the fundamental questions? I understand Rolls-Royce invested some about 1.25 billion, I think more than that, in research and development to create such kind of capability. You support some about 27 university, a robust collaboration
37
with academia. 28 or 27
37
labs.
37.
Absolutely, and you position you on the forefront of technological breakthrough, basically. Do you think Indian entities, when you talk about Indian research entity, I mean DRDO do, along with academia, invest such amount of R&D? Do we have certain direction so we can come up with some breakthrough, as you said, product like yours company have been doing around the world?
You see, the way we have been investing is very different in technology than the way everybody in other parts of the world have been investing, right? If you were to look at the US or you look at the UK, there is tremendous academia research work that happens. Government funding happens into the academia for research work that is related to defense, energy, other areas. But in India, we invest that money into DRDO, we invest the money into GTREs, MALs, and do the development work there. More and more, as I see today, there are more and more universities that are starting to do work with the DRDOs, with the GTREs of India, right? So I think at the end of the day, research can happen in many different forms. In the Western world, it's happened a certain way. In our world, it's happened a certain way. We need to see if our world has had the pace it needs and then adjust the pace on this, a pace at which we can develop the products and the services needed. But then it is a question of, look, it's not my decision to do that. It's my decision to keep pushing it. But at the end of the day, we are not any less in any form or fashion in doing what we do. It is just that our business model, our models are a little different than everybody else in the world because of our constraints, which are also very different than everywhere else in the world. So I look at it from that perspective and then try to figure out how can a company like Rolls-Royce partner with organizations like DRDO, GTRE, HAL, and how can we move forward at the same time positioning ourselves into a future that is going to happen, into a future that is going to be more and more Atmanirbhar, right? That is what I keep thinking about every day. And I have to think about it in the context of how things happen in India. The way things are happening in India is very different than the way it happens in UK and US, right? And so that is, I hope that gives you some semblance of an answer, but that's the way I think about these things.
So is the funding a problem to create such a center of excellence for research innovation? On the applied side of I'm talking about scientific innovation, basically, which you have a certain product which you come up advanced at certain equipment.
Well, look, funding is always, if you don't get it, it's a problem. If you get it, it's a great success, right? And so it depends on who you're asking. Now, if you ask me and say that, is there funding allocated right now for engine development? I don't know of one, right? And that will be allocated in time to come, right? It will be allocated as soon as they say, I want to develop this engine here. And that development engine is a decision that happens within the government and all these relevant organizations, right? But I don't see, if they want to allocate the money, they'll find the money. Right, and I think the time will come when they will find them.
Come back towards the end of discussion, but last and important question. I think you also given a very fantastic, exciting statement about made in India regional aircraft and Rolls-Royce has powered that. I understand National Aerospace Laboratory is developing some about 70-80 seater commercial aircraft. I mean, still long way ahead in terms of they're still in the planning stage. What is your proposition? If you say for 70-80 seater aircraft, a capacity of certain ton of engine is required, how much time it takes for you to customize and build it up that world-class engine? And in this case of India, I'm talking about, and the message to, in fact, to the Indian government, how to do something about this.
Well, look, that will be truly a wild guess if I were to even attempt at anything. So I'm not going to attempt any wild guesses, right? I mean, look, at the end of the day, do we know how to build an engine for a 70-80 seater? Absolutely, yes, right? Again, all these things, when we go about, there are three different ways to do it. One is to sell an engine, right, with some other aircraft builder. And the other part is to go ahead and figure out if you can manufacture an engine in India, which has a design, everything that's been there overseas. And the third one is to design an engine here. So I think it is quite possible to do any of those, whether it's 70-80 seater or it's 30-40 seater or a 540 seater. So we have our XWB engines, which power the Airbus 350s. We had our Trent 900 engines that were powering the Airbus 380. So we know how to build the engines. What we need to now see is, who wants us to build it for them, right? And then we keep constantly appraising everybody of what our capabilities are, and then allow them to make the decision to allow us to do work with them.
But you also spoke about economic viability and case for that. What does it mean? Is it about? I understand it's a tough business. Aviation is a tough business in the larger context of the debate we're talking about. But still, India is the largest market. We need a couple of, I'm sure, 100 aircrafts and engine in the aviation being soon. So, is it a valid economic case, to have our own aircraft and then export it? Also?
So there are three different streams here. Number one is the airlines themselves. They will have to decide which aircraft they want, what is their operating or flight plans. And the next one is the aircraft manufacturer who has to decide which engine they want. And then it's the engine manufacturer who says, what sort of engine do I want to apply to this kind of an aircraft? Because at the end of the day, once the aircraft starts flying, the engine has to be, the services work is tremendous with the engines because they have to be maintained very well. They form the heart of the aircraft, right? So these decisions have to be made on each of them making money out of their businesses. And so they all do their mathematical models around it and they all come up with what they want to achieve. And if the mathematical model comes out and says, look, I need X, Y, and Z, then they will say, I don't have an engine or I have an engine. I don't have an aircraft or I have an aircraft. And I don't have the technology or I have the technology. So this is what I meant by saying economic viability. It's not purely economic viability. It is about business viability. Right? Economics plays one role in it, but technology plays a second role. And then nowadays, we also have to include sustainability into it because the world is very different and we all understand our concerns for the environment and how much environment is important. And so, you put all these equations in and then you decide which is the best model. Should I buy an aircraft with an engine? Should I build an engine? Should I build an aircraft? That I'm going to leave it to the powers to be.
Great. And of course, this is my last question, but again, very important. And I want you to be emphatic, in your commitment to say that, in the nation building, will Rolls-Royce commit that by next year, we will have Make in India fighter jet engine up and running, at least at the ground level. Do you see that happening by next year in India, Mr. Kishore Jayaraman?
Well, look, there's no commitment in these kinds of things. We haven't even started in the journey, right? We have started in the journey, but then it's a long way from here to the end point. So it's not a commitment, but we are committed to work with India. We are committed to work in India, and we are committed to stay tuned with all the necessary things that India needs and Rolls-Royce needs and make sure the intersection keeps growing. That part of it we are committed to, and we'll do all the right things the right ways in order to build the right business.
Thank you. So here, Kishore Jayaraman on building, aerospace capability of India. Rolls-Royce, is a master of engine. India needs that capability. India needs that aerospace to be aerospace hub. Rolls-Royce to be a partner in the future. And emerging India need leaders like you to be more forthcoming and more on such innovation ideas. Thank you, Kishore Jayaraman, Manish Kumar, Businessworld.